And welcome. This is the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is Monday, November 9th, 2020, at 7 o'clock p.m. This meeting is being held in person and electronically. We will call the meeting to order and would all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone should have a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes, corrections to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Noel will second.
All right, Ed 1, Shannon 2. All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes from our October 26, 2020 meeting. Those minutes appear on pages 7 through 11. Are there any changes or comments on the minutes?
Mr. Mayor, this is Shannon. I do note on page 8 a correction to Carrie Leonard's name. I believe her first name is spelled K-A-R-I.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure, but I do remember, I think you're right. I do remember seeing that at one point in time. Not recently, but I do remember that. Anybody else? Anything else on the minutes? All right. The minutes, with that one change with the spelling on Carrie Leonard's name, with that change, is there a motion to approve the minutes from that meeting?
Carrie Johnson will make a motion to approve.
Emily will second.
Carrie 1, Emily 2, all in favor of the minutes with the one change, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next up, we have a couple of public hearings, and the first one is on for assessments of unpaid utilities. But before we get into that, there are a few basic procedures that we like to follow. The staff, we will start out with a staff presentation. In this case, it's the city staff. And then if there's anyone that would like to speak as far as the applicant, which once again, this is the city staff, so it'll be the same thing. And then there's a chance for public comment. If anybody, I don't see anybody here, but if anybody would be here, in case someone does show up for the second one, we'd like to limit the comments to 5 minutes. With that being said,
Mr. Mayor, if I can?
Yes.
We do have one caller.
Oh, we do, okay.
Since they just came in just a few moments ago.
All right, didn't
if
see
they're
that.
here for one of the hearings, we'd love to test their microphone first. So if you are here on the phone, you're the only caller we have in, you don't have to tell us your name unless you want to participate in the hearings.
Probably me. This is Brian from the Free Press.
Oh,
so no need to participate.
That's you, Brian. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for checking.
All right. With those guidelines, we will open the public hearing for the assessment of unpaid utilities on Monday, November 9th, 2020 at 7:04 p.m. And Sally.
Yes, we're here for the public hearing on unpaid utility charges. My staff has pulled together for all property owners the delinquent utility accounts as of May 31st, 2020. This goes from June 1st of 2019 up to May 31st of 2020. We pull all past due amounts that are assessable to property owners, and per our assessment policy, that is anything that is not electric by tenants, or if the tenant or if the owner has passed away, or bankruptcy, or any balances below $10, we end up writing those off. So what we have today in front of us is the total amount of past due accounts as of May 31st is $16,848.82, of which $4,758.66 is accessible to the property owners. There's a listing in our packet, and we have also sent out notification to all the property owners of the amount that will be assessed to their property. So they've received letters stating that they will be assessed if they do not pay in full by December 9th, 2020. If the city, then we will go to the county and assess it, and at that point, they have to work with the county to pay off early if they want, otherwise it'll be assessed their property payable within 1 year and their property taxes.
Okay. As per usual procedure, this is going to be coming up shortly under unfinished business. So if anyone has questions for Sally at that time, if you can hold them till then, that would be great. And then we can move into to our regular business. I thought I saw another name up here. Is there anyone else up here, Todd?
Larson?
Yes, we do. Eric Larson, at least it says on the video here. So I think, Mr. Mayor, if we want to provide the opportunity, if Eric wants to speak at any of the hearings, now is an appropriate time for him to talk about unpaid utility charges, if he would like.
Eric, I don't know if you heard. Go ahead.
Todd, Eric is the general manager of the food co-op, so he's here for that business item, I believe.
Ah, that Eric Larson. Sure, okay, fantastic.
Eric, do you know Carrie? Anyway, all right, we will, I will ask if there is anybody, once again, if there's anybody that would like to speak on this matter, on the public hearing for the assessment of unpaid utility charges. If not, we will close this public hearing for the assessment of unpaid utility charges on Monday, November 9th, 2020 at 7:06 p.m. Next up, we have the assessment of unpaid miscellaneous charges. And Sally.
Yes, this is for projects done on properties and also some lawn mowing and snow removal charges. We do have waiver assessments signed by all the property owners, so they are aware they have agreed to the assessment and the assessment amounts. So they know that they can have it assessed their property, and they've approved to that. We did receive one assessment mid-October for work that was not on the original list, and that was at 317 Chatham in the amount of $532. So this has been added to the assessment list. Miscellaneous charges for lawn mowing and snow removal are assessed up through property unpaid through August 11th of 2020. Everything else was for work done by the city crew this summer. The amount to be assessed for curb gutter driveway is $70,259.50, and lawn mowing and snow removal is for $395.37. Again, property owners have till December 10th, 2020 to pay in full at City Hall without interest, and if they do not, then we will certify it and take it over to the county and they will assess it. Interest rates range anywhere from 1% for 1 year up to 1.78 for 10 years.
Okay.
And again, we have sent letters to all the property owners with the amounts.
Okay. All right. I see we were, we'll open it up for public comment. I see we were joined by caller number 2. If caller number 2 would care to speak on this matter, or if not, identify themselves so we know that we don't have to address you later, or we can address you later no matter what the situation. If you do not respond, I'm assuming you're here to not participate.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, once again, I'll call for anybody in the public that would like to speak on this matter for the assessment of unpaid miscellaneous charges. And we don't have anybody, so we will go to questions, as I said, later when it comes up on the unfinished business. So we will close the public hearing for the assessment of unpaid miscellaneous charges on Monday, November 9th, 2020 at 7:08 p.m. Next, we will address visitors. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter whatsoever? Seeing no one, we will move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins in detail on page 13 and concludes with the resolution on page 28 and includes the following budgeted purchases in excess of $10,000 to loggers of St. Peter for 2021 Ram 1500 tradesman pickup truck for $32,448, and 44 cents. To Javens Mechanical for tube heating system for Public Works Building B for $12,810. The following vehicle attributed to the replacement of it by the loggers truck that we just talked about is declared as surplus. It is a 2003 Ford F-150. Next, the December 21st, 2020 council meeting and the December 28th workshop meeting are being canceled. Staff is directed to do accounts payable prior to the end of the year, December 31st, 2020, so it can be reviewed, plus a disbursement list, of the aforementioned end-of-year accounts will be taken up by consideration on the January 11th, 2021 regular council meeting, plus the regular schedule of disbursements for October 22nd, 2020 through November 4th, 2020. Are there any questions, comments concerning the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Noel will second.
Ed 1, Shannon 2. Now any questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye. Consent agenda is approved. Next, we have the unfinished business, and the first thing up is what we had the public hearings on, the assessment of unpaid utility charges. Sally?
Okay. Mayor Zeman and City Council, again, we're here tonight to ask the approval of the resolution for the city to assess property owners for delinquent utility accounts as of May 31st, 2020. The memo begins on page 29 and goes through 30. The amount of past due, again, is $16,848.82, of which $4,758 and 66 cents is assessable to property owners. Non-assessed portions of utility bills are the electricity for tenants and balances below $10, bankruptcies, or death. The resolution to assess property owners for past due utility accounts is on pages 33 and 34. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Sally? If not, the resolution adopting assessment for unpaid utility charges for municipal utilities and writing off of bad debt utility charges appears on page 31 and 32 with Exhibit A on pages 33 and 34. Is there a motion for approval?
Carrie Johnson will make a motion to approve.
Emily will second.
Carrie 1, Emily 2. Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next, we have the assessment of unpaid miscellaneous charges. Sally?
Mayor Zeman and City Council, we are asking for approval tonight of a resolution to assess property owners for unpaid projects and miscellaneous charges. Again, the memo begins on page 35 through 36. The assessments are for curb, gutter, sidewalk projects, and we do have signed waivers from all owners approving the assessment. The city did receive one late assessment in mid-October for work completed the week of November 6th, and the property address of that is 317 Chatham in the amount of $532. So that was added to the assessment list. Miscellaneous charges for lawn mowing and snow removals at properties are included to be assessed with properties that incurred the unpaid charges as of August 11th of 2020. Total amount of the assessments for curb, gutter, sidewalks, and driveway is $70,259.50. Lawn mowing and snow removal is $395.37. Property owners have till December 10th, 2020 to pay in full at City Hall without interest. The resolution to assess unpaid projects and miscellaneous charges is on 37 and 38.
Okay. Questions for Sally? If not, the resolution adopting assessment of unpaid miscellaneous charges appears on pages 37 and 38, which includes the Exhibit A. Is there a motion for approval?
DeVos will move.
Ed will second.
All right, Brad 1, Ed 2. Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Thank you, Sally. Next up, we have new business, and the first thing up, we have Russ to tell us about the COVID-19 micro loan grant conversion. Russ.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the City Council. As a response to the COVID situation that was presented to us in the spring, on Monday, March 30th, you created the guidelines for the COVID-19 micro loan program. We put that out immediately, took applications the next day, and the first loans were closed that following Friday on the 3rd of April. The loans were originally limited to businesses that were immediately impacted by the governor's executive orders closing or severely limiting their operations. It was further then expanded to business sectors such as auto repair, business-to-business bookkeeping, birth centers, and a few others. All of the loans were established at a 0% rate of interest, and payment was deferred until June of 2021. At the time of repayment, the loans were scheduled to be repaid at $100 a month, regardless of whether they took the full $10,000 or they were eligible for a lesser loan amount. As a result of the project, there's 56 individuals or businesses that were extremely grateful for your assistance, and loans totaled $487,702. The EDA took action to close the program to new applications effective as August 31st. Subsequent to that, we've been informed the city has received the $901,000 in CARES Act reimbursement. And at that time, it was suggested that I bring the matter to the EDA and see if they would recommend the conversion of the deferred loans to a grant program that would have no repayment obligation by the borrower. The EDA considered that matter at their meeting on the 22nd of October, and they have recommended conversion of the loans to grants. If you were to accept their recommendation and pass the resolution as presented to you tonight, I would work with Finance Director Vogel to provide communication to the recipients. We would ask that they once again confirm their federal tax ID number as their consent to the forgiveness or the conversion to the grant. Once we have that, we need to report to the IRS that this is a forgiven debt, so the recipients will likely have a small tax obligation. And again, they need to return that, either their Social Security number if they took it as an individual, or the tax ID if they took it as an LLC or a business. Mr. Mayor, there is a resolution that's been prepared on page 41 that would propose acceptance of the EDA's recommendation. And I would answer any questions that you or members of the council might have at this time.
All right. Questions for Russ? Carrie?
Hi, Russ. So I'm supportive of this. I just had a question, and I'm mainly curious, just in case we're asked by businesses, what does that small tax obligation look like? For instance, if a business had the full loan, or the $10,000, could you have an approximate number what that looks like?
No, I really don't, and I know it would depend on each individual business, depending upon what they had for, perhaps they have enough, if you will, business expenses that it wouldn't have any tax impact. But, you know, if you or I as individuals, we typically have an impact based upon the tax rate that we're paying on our other income.
Okay, thank you. So it depends, and they should talk to their accountant.
Yeah, certainly. As they prepare their taxes, they want to make sure that they provide that form that we're going to give them to their accountant.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Question? Shannon?
Thank you. Russ, could you clarify? I just want to make sure I understand properly. Is the EDA recommending that we also forgive the loans for the one business that went, or the two businesses that have gone out of business since they received the loan?
Yeah, I believe the intent was that they would be forgiven. There's also been consideration of actually reimbursing the owner for the team for the $100 that he has made for the number of payments that he's made. But the other business went out after there had been some preliminary discussion of converting the loans to grants, so we didn't even set them up on a repayment. And based upon the council's action tonight, we will take that action if it's necessary.
Super. Thank you very much.
All right, anyone else? The resolution converting the COVID-19 microloans to grants with no repayment obligation on behalf of the loan recipients appears on page 41. Is there a motion for approval?
Emily,
Noel,
so moved.
This is Steve Grant, Come here.
All right, I got Emily 1, Steve 2. Any questions at this point? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have the St. Peter Co-op revolving loan modification. Russ.
Yeah, Mayor, members, in 2011, as the St. Peter Food Co-op relocated to the repurposed Nielsen Chevrolet building, the city provided them with a $350,000 loan from the established revolving loan fund. The total project to remodel and occupy the building at that time was $3,350,000. The loan was established at 3% rate of interest. It was scheduled to be paid on a 20-year amortization, but there was a 10-year balloon established. That balloon would become payable effective December 1st of this year. In 2018, the co-op undertook a remodeling of the deli and some other things and took some actions to respond to customer practices. And they did a $580,000 remodeling at that time. The EDA did not provide additional funding in 2018, but you did subordinate the third mortgage that you hold to the holder of the first two mortgages to represent the new dollars that were coming into the matter. At this point, as the balloon is due, I've received a letter from Eric Larson, the general manager of the food co-op, requesting an extension of the balloon for a 5-year period that is contemplated in your loan guidelines. Given the uncertainty of the COVID situation as it would manifest itself ongoing, the ability to refinance, or not refinance, but extend the balloon 5 years would be appreciated of value. I also have received correspondence from CCF Bank, the holder of the first mortgage, indicating that they are not able to extend additional credit in a manner that would be able to release the EDA from its third mortgage position. Every single payment from the food co-op has been made as due, when due, and in the amount due without a single exception as we expected. The EDA did undertake a review of the finances, current finances of the food co-op, and that was undertaken by members Corey Abels, Bob Southworth, and Mike Favor of the EDA. They reported that nothing suggested the creditworthiness of the food co-op has been diminished. The EDA then did vote to recommend the 5-year balloon extension to December 1st of 2025. They discussed the interest rate as it is set at 3%, and the U.S. prime as it stands today is 3.25. The EDA has not recommended an adjustment to the interest rate and would recommend it remain at 3%. Mayor, before you vote, I'd like to talk about some of the impacts of this revolving loan. And Eric and I had presented or prepared this earlier. Their electrical billing at their previous location on a monthly basis was just under $2,500 a month. At this point, it's over $4,700 a month with the additional cooler and other space that they've occupied. Prior to the renovation, the Nielsen Chevrolet property had a taxable market value of $297,300. Following the 2018 renovations, the property has a taxable market value of $783,600 in 2020 for taxes payable in 2021. And this is the big one here. I'm just going to go to the payroll dollars. At the previous location in the last year of operation, they had a payroll of about $405,000. In 2019, the food co-op had a payroll of $1,406,933. So as a result of this loan, on an annual basis, there's $1 million that's running through the town in payroll benefits that's made to their employees. So I've referred to this in the past as the trifecta. It's got the tax increase, it's got the job increase, and as a utility provider, it has utility sales. So, Mr. Mayor, the EDA has made a recommendation to extend the balloon for 5 years, and I'd answer any questions you or the members might have.
Okay. Questions for Russ and Eric? Russ, I have one. What is their monthly payment? Or maybe Eric knows. Do you know?
I couldn't tell you what the monthly payment is. I could look it up here.
I'm just looking at the 5-year balloon extension. You know what?
Yeah, I got a monthly payment of $1,941.
Okay, so in 5 years we'll probably have about a balance of $150,000, somewhere in that range. I'm just kind of curious how it all laid out. So that's fine. The other thing, you had said $405,000 in wages to $1,406,000 an odd number. Is it they've added more employees, or is it just maybe some of the employees are overpaid? Carrie's laughing. I don't know if anybody else is.
To finalize the employment, at their previous location, they had 42 employees. In 2019, they had 71 employees. But really, it's hours worked. Okay. And in their previous location last year, they had 37,675 hours, which would calculate to about 18 full-time equivalents. In 2019, they had 101,575 hours, which would be just under 50 full-time equivalents. So I think it's been a home run for all involved, and I think Food Co-op is grateful for our assistance, and it certainly has helped them as they've grown into the market.
Yeah. Well, they have been in this community now doing this for quite a few years, and this is their third location for doing it, and I know that they are a well-respected member of our business community, so we appreciate all of the efforts that they do make. Any questions for us? Not, the resolution extending the balloon payment date of the St. Peter Food Co-op revolving loan until December 1, 2025 appears on page 44. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Emily will.
Okay, I have Steve 1 and Ed 2. Any other questions at this time? Carrie?
Mr. Mayor? Yeah, I talked to Todd, and while there's no legal standing for me to abstain for conflict of interest, I'm going to when it comes time to vote, just for my work there.
All right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Barb will still call your name, but yeah, there is no reason you cannot vote. But that's your choice. So,
Thank you.
any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Abstain?
Councilmember Grams.
Aye.
Resolution is approved with one abstention. All right, and thank you, Eric, for being here, just in case we needed you. Next up, we have the North Traverse Green Subdivision Development Agreements, and it seems like we've seen this before. Russ?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you. As you're all aware, this matter has been pulled from the last two City Council meetings. It was necessary for us to correct some title issues before we could recommend that you would enter into the development agreement. Namely, the covenants that were filed, intending to be filed against the single-family properties, were inadvertently filed against the multifamily properties. So it was inherent that we correct that matter, and thanks to the assistance of City Attorney Brandt and the Nicollet County Recorder's Office, that action has been corrected, and we're willing to recommend that you go forward tonight. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to start with the resolution on page 94 and kind of work somewhat a little bit backwards. And the first action you're asked to take in the resolution is to approve the assignment of the purchase agreement dated July 13th to St. Peter Lands, LLC. All of our previous activities have been with Community Asset Development Group, or what we've referred to as CADG. But in the purchase agreement we entered into in July, it did provide for the assignability, which had always been the intent. St. Peter Lands is going to take ownership of all of the property within Outlot B that is being sold, and then they will further assign Lot 1, Block 1, or the multifamily site, and only the multifamily site, to another LLC that's been created called St. Peter Investors LLC. The next action you're asked to is to approve entering into the development agreement. Again, the development agreement addresses the installation of public improvements and utilities within the development property. The developer will finance all of the Exhibit B improvements, which are included in the development agreement. The developer will also pay the actual cost to inspect the installation and construction of public improvements. So members of Public Works Director Moulton's staff will be monitoring the installation of those utilities to make sure they meet all of the standards that have been adopted by the city. The developer will also pay to the city $2,000 for the reimbursement for legal fees. We intend to extend Clark Street from County State Aid Highway 20 or Nicollet Avenue to the west, then to the end of the first subdivision. Typically, a developer will dedicate that lands. In this case, the lands were already platted with the first phase of Traverse Green. The owner will then pay the city $9,041 as if they had dedicated half of the land that would be encumbered by the Clark Street right-of-way. Cullen Street on the very west end of the property is depicted on the preliminary plat as Outlot B. The owner then will pay the city $5,160 as if dedicating the eastern half of the future Cullen Street right-of-way. Cullen Street will be constructed at a later date as future phases of the subdivision are undertaken. The stormwater management upon the site will be collected through intakes and piped to the Clark Street Basin, which is on the east side of Nicollet Avenue or Passat 20. The developer will have a $11,718.16 assessment for the cost that had been previously paid to construct the Clark Street Basin. As future phases of the development are undertaken, They will also have a $2,386.59 assessment per acre as future phases will be undertaken. They owe a 12% parkland dedication, which is applicable to residential subdivisions. Given that the city has no public parks planned within that area, we will accept cash. For the 4.9 acres of the original development, they would owe 0.5892 acres of land to dedicate towards park. The cash value of that's been determined to be $5,892. As additional parkland dedications fees will be assessed and encumbered as future phases of the development agreement would occur. The tax increment financing agreement then would be between the city of St. Peter and St. Peter investors. Mary Ipple, the bond attorney, TIF attorney from Briggs & Morgan, they're no longer called Briggs & Morgan, I can't remember what they're called, but we've been working with Mary for a number of years. So she has prepared tax increment district, and this is within the existing tax increment district 1-20. There are 23 years of collection within that tax increment district remaining. The developer identified $8,466,778 is their construction estimates. We asked the Nicollet County Assessor then to give us a preliminary tax increment calculation, and if the development is built according to the plans and specifications and site plans provided, it would have a post-development taxable value of $7,395,400. The current value of the vacant land as it exists right now is $169,700. The annual tax increment then is determined to be $112,067. The city will be able to retain 10% of the total tax capacity, or we'd be able to maintain $12,501 on an annual basis to reimburse the city for the preparation of the TIF plan and our ongoing administration of the tax increment district. The obligations of the developer would be that the undertaking complete the construction as per the plans approved by the council, that they remit paid invoices for their identified eligible tax increment expenses. They will be obligated to make sure that 20% or 13 of the units are rented to families with income of 50% of their area median income or below. They need to submit annual reports then on the income and occupancy. If they follow all their obligations then, we would enter into a 0% tax increment financing note delivered to the developer when they provide paid invoices for the eligible costs. They've identified they'd be reimbursed $2.1 million, or just under 25% of the eligible TIF expenses that they've identified. It would have a maximum of a 15-year repayment. That's calculated to provide reimbursements of only $1,681,005. So the developer is carrying the risk on this pay-as-you-go tax increment district. As they make their annual tax payments, they then would get an annual reimbursement. If they fail to make a tax payment, they get no reimbursement. If the taxes come in below what the estimates, they will receive the lower level for a 15-year period, and at that point, the city will have no further obligation, even if they don't reach the $2.1 million in reimbursement. As we've talked to Shannon Sweeney of David Drown, is preparing the tax increment plan. Shannon said, the typical subsidy package lately for rental housing in greater Minnesota has included longer terms on TIF subsidies and cities providing land or infrastructure. I doubt they will get to the 2.1 million, as our history has been that most of our pay-as-you-go TIF deals expire before the developer is compensated to the maximum amount. Mr. Mayor, the final action that would be to approve the site plan, the building design, the building materials, and then also noting that an interior sidewalk circulation plan for pedestrians is still being developed, and that would need to be created to the satisfaction of Public Works Director Moulton. As we're planning Clark Street, the sidewalk would likely be on one side. As you leave Standard Lumber, it's on the south side. As you cross Nicollet Avenue, perhaps it will transition to the north side. all that will impact where the sidewalk plan for the multifamily would be designed. Also, it's likely they'll tie into the sidewalk along Nicollet Avenue, perhaps on the northern side of the lot. Mr. Mayor, I think I've covered what I intended. I'd answer any questions you or the council might have.
All right. Questions for Russ? Steve?
Russ, being that the county and the school district is not receiving any tax help on this particular project or of this size, do you ever get any type of feedback from either entity that questions the tax increment financing authority that the city has?
Yeah, we've had conversations in the past, and the maximum life of a housing district is 26 years. We've tried to stay in the dozen-year range to keep peace with the county and the school district. In this case, as Shannon, his quote had said, most cities are extending these a little bit longer to get the development in rural Minnesota. So 15 years, I don't think is going to get us crossways. But then also, we will all share the tax of the current value. I think it was $169,000, I said. So you also then consider what additional costs the school district might have with this land developed. They may be grateful for the enrollment that might happen from young families perhaps filling the apartments. And again, with the county, I would think that their additional cost pending development of this would be negligible. I've often said it's un-American of us to defer our gratification, but we're looking down the line, and we've had a number of TIF districts that have just recently ended their useful life, so we've had those dollars converted, and it is impactful when it happens. But to answer your question, Councilman Graham, so we really haven't had a lot of blowback. And maybe the administrator.
Okay, thanks for us.
Let me add just
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Let me add one other item. Both the school district and the county are notified of this and have the opportunity to comment. They do not have the ability to veto this, but they do have the ability to provide comment.
But does not the school district get credits also instead of the tax as it?
So their primary driver is weighted pupil unit funding.
Right.
Yeah.
But, okay, but I thought they received some credit from tax credits or whatever from the state.
I think that's true, Mr. Mayor, in the bigger sense relative to ensuring that districts across the state are funded appropriately as a part of their funding formula, but I don't believe there's a direct payment that's made to the school district.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Carrie?
Just because you brought this up, Todd, when do they have the opportunity to comment, and what does that look like?
So the opportunity to comment is provided, and we provide notice at the first time that this is going to be considered by the city council. So a few council meetings ago, they had that opportunity. Typically what it would look like would be a letter. That's typically what it would look like. I can tell you that as a part of city-county meetings, since you're a member on there, we have discussed this. We haven't discussed the full tax impact, but have talked about this development is ongoing and that it's planned to be a housing TIF district. I can also tell you when I meet with the school superintendent on a regular basis, we discuss this. As you know, the school district currently is farming this portion, and so we've had very clear discussion about how that might be impacted, their program, et cetera. And certainly they're much interested in the weighted pupil unit funding that can come with developments of this type.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? The resolution authorizing execution of development and tax increment financing agreements for private, improvements upon Lot 1, Block 1, North Traverse Green subdivision appears on pages 93 and 94. Is there a motion for approval?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Gary Johnson will second.
Ed 1, Carrie 2. Any questions at this time? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Terry Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Grams.
Aye.
Councilmember Brufat.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Russ, I want to thank you for all of the work on all three of these items here tonight. Not just the COVID right now, but the work that was done previously in the expeditious way that was handled to get loans out to the businesses when they really needed them. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next
It was
up.
an honor.
Yep. Next up, we have Joey and the 2021 municipal fee schedule, probably with Todd too.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Pete and Joey are here if you have specific questions, as you see on page 95 within your packet, and as you discussed at your last workshop. The two primary areas of modification that we see relate to those two departments, within the Recreation Department and certainly utilization of the community center, but then also some modifications to fees relative to the folks that Pete supervises within Public Works, primarily driven by utilization of the compost facility, which is located at St. Julian and Swift. That is a more than just a fee modification issue. This is a process and policy modification issue as well. So you did have the opportunity to go through this at your workshop just last week, and what you see included in your packet is that information and what I believe to be the final resolution that we are asking you to approve, which would be effective on January 1st. Mr. Mayor, we did make some additional modifications other than those that are listed in the packet, in the memo, through page 98. Those were made based on the suggestion of the City Council to try and even out the numbers just a little bit. And so there might be 6 or 8 other numbers that were modified in the body of the resolution that you see starting on page 99. I will mention, Mr. Mayor, that we did see one error, and that is on page 115 on the very top of the page under park-related fees, item 152. You'll notice that the non-resident fee says $95. It should say $85 rather than $95. It should say $85. But this represents the majority of fees and costs that you have for all things from liquor licenses to cat licenses to building inspection licenses to water connection fees to rental of the pavilion, as an example, which is located on page 115. The resolution in your packet flows through for 185 different types of fees, and this would be, if approved, effective on January 1st. So you wouldn't have to approve it tonight, but it's an appropriate time. This way we can get the information out to folks that this might impact in the new year. And so we try and get these done in November or early part of December. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd stand for any questions that you might have. And again, Joey and Pete are here if you have specific questions about their area or any others. We'll do our best to cover them.
All right. I'm going to ask first, Joey or Pete, did you have anything to add before we go to questions? Doesn't look like it. So anyone have questions for Todd, Joey, or Pete? As Todd mentioned, we discussed this in more detail at our last workshop. So, I can understand that, but if anyone else has anything to add or questions now? If not, the resolution approving the 2021 municipal fee schedule with the one change on page 115, first item price-wise from $95 to $85. The resolution appears on pages 99 through 117. Is there a motion to approve?
Noel will move approval.
Emily will second.
Okay. Shannon 1, Emily 2. Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Terry Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Grams.
Aye.
Councilmember Brufat.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. That concludes our new business. Next up, we have reports. The only thing I have is a reminder. I'm not sure what is being held locally, if anything, because of the COVID. But Wednesday, November 11th, is Veterans Day. Please acknowledge the contribution that a lot of people have made. And if you don't get to see someone on actually that day, maybe the next time you see them. Just a thank you is greatly, greatly appreciated by all of those that served our country. That is all I have, Todd. I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask my question now of Pete. Pete, I noticed around town there's a lot of Christmas lights up already, private ones, but why are the lights on Minnesota Avenue on the west side? The city lights.
The trees.
We were in the process of working with Sentence to Serve to put up the Christmas lights.
But so you want them lit already too then?
They come on with the street lights, and so they're on the same circuit as the street lights right now.
Okay, all right.
So we could unplug them, but we just left them on so that we can see them.
Okay, I was kind of curious because it came through the other night and I saw them again tonight that they were there. And just the one side of the west side is lit and not the other, so, okay.
There'll be more lights down there, but.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
I looked at the calendar and still November 9th, so I was just kind of wondering.
Never too early.
Yes, it is. Well, maybe.
I'm just thinking, Mr. Mayor, just put the mayor in a good Christmas mood, holiday mood.
Yeah. All right, that's all I had. Todd?
Mr. Mayor, to piggyback on your report, I do want to mention that city non-emergency offices will be closed on Veterans Day on Wednesday. Going to the first report that I have scheduled here, COVID-19 update, I do want to mention that we continue to see employees that may be absent from work due to direct contact and illness with COVID, or and we continue to follow the policy that's been developed related to how employees are treated and paid and how that all fits together. So I want you to be aware of that. And we continue our ongoing planning how to ensure that services continue in the event that we have substantial absences from work. But right now we're doing okay, and I think it's important for you to know that we have policies in place and we're following those policies, and I think doing just fine with that. The next item, and I can, if you have any other questions about COVID related to city operations, I'm happy to answer those. General election recap, we do want to mention that we had a total of 6,471 registered voters. Of that, just slightly less than 2,500 of those registered voters voted on election day. The rest voted before that time.
Oh.
It's important to note that we had approximately 450 new registrants on election day, which is wonderful. St. Peter has long prided itself on ensuring that we have great voter turnout, and this year was no exception. On a county-wide basis, we had just about 91% of registered voters turn out to vote. So that is fantastic. Certainly in each of the wards and precincts, we had substantial turnout. In 1-1, we had just about 1,900 voters. In 1-2, we had slightly over 2,000. In 2-1, we had 1,006. And in 2-2, 2-1 and 2-2 on the north end of town, we had approximately 1,600 registered voters there. So that's fantastic, and I got to take this opportunity to thank all the election judges. There are friends and neighbors. They're red, blue, purple, green, all kinds of different political colors that work all together to help run the elections. And to thank Barb, a lot of training and a lot of effort and planning goes into it. And we had, I think, a number of very positive comments about the safety measures that were in place at the polling places. So very happy about that and proud about that. St. Peter always has wonderful turnout, and so it's something to be proud of. Participating in democracy, very, very important. The last couple I have here is I do want to report, and should have reported on this at the last meeting. The City Council and the Hospital Commission had a joint closed session on 10/12/2020. The reason for that session was to review contracts relative to hospital CEO, and so as you'll see, there's some additional discussion going on with that. But it's my duty under the state law to report that that was the basis for the discussion at that point. And then we had a couple of other closed sessions relative to properties on 10/12. And so I do want to mention that we have those ongoing in today's meeting if the council approves a closed session or executive session for those. So again, under state statute, we're obligated to mention that those were about 1830 Freeman Drive and about 216 South Washington Avenue. And we have to declare those under state law at the time of the meeting. No property transaction took place at that meeting or as a part of that. Any transaction that the council would undertake has to happen in an open meeting, in a public meeting, and so, anyway, obligated to report and wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's all I have for reports for this meeting, other than a request for closed session for some land sales, some union updates, and then hospital CEO contract discussions.
Okay. Any questions for Todd on items he mentioned or anything else? Carrie?
Todd, as you were talking about turnout, it reminded me of the hot sheet that I saw a couple weeks ago, I think about, or maybe it was more recent, but the census turnout. And I believe St. Peter was in the upper 70s. And we didn't quite crank it out to beat North Mankato, but that was still a fun competition. And in general, Minnesota does pretty well with census turnout. But how does our census turnout this year compared to the last census?
You know what, Councilmember Johnson, I will have to get back to you on that. I know that we've shared those numbers in the past, but it's not something that I recall right off the top of my head. But we'll be happy to send information to all the council about that. I just don't retain that right off the top of my head.
Shucks, Todd. I was hoping to have that info right now.
Well, I've been here a couple of decades, so it should be something that I have just stored away, but I just can't conjure it up right now.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for getting that to us.
You bet.
Anybody else questions or other things they wanted to share with the council? The rest of the council, I should say. Todd, I thought of this after you made the comment about the election judges, and I know a lot of people voted either by mail or absentee and that type of thing. And it was after you mentioned this, my wife and I went down physically and voted about 10 o'clock in the morning, and we left there. And I said, I said, what a sense of community, because I'd say at least 3/4 of the judges that I saw, we knew who they were, you know, and I thought, boy, I really felt as part of a small community or part of a community, you know, that it was really kind of a touching deal for us that we could experience that. And once again, reiterate your comment about all the work and stuff that they put in, and to Barb. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? All right. If not, we will ask for a resolution for a closed session. We will come back into open session only to adjourn. So we don't really need to, I don't think, to add anything else other than that. So the resolution calling for the closed session appears on page 118 for the purpose of land sales, two locations, 1830 Freeman Drive, 216 South Washington, for streets union contract and for parks union contract, and then for discussion on Rivers Edge Hospital CEO. With that, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Emily will second.
All right. Ed 1, Emily 2. Any questions on the resolution? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Grahams.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.